All right. So this morning with Coon and with Alton, you know, for a lot of people who don't know what that is, you kind of had to be around maybe a couple of years ago where I actually started this segment. And let me just briefly say this, explain why this is called, quote unquote, Cooning with Alton. It's because whenever you as a black person, you have a different take on like political stuff, like if you don't really hold to a lot of leftist leaning, Democrat leaning ideologies or the whole herd mentality of how all black people should think, which I think is, really racist to its core. It's a racist way of thinking. But if you don't hold to that, then you are considered a coon. All right. That's one of the things that they call that. That's one of the things that they call you. Right. You hear guys like, Dr. Umar Johnson. He kind of uses that term a lot. He kind of says stuff like this.
Coon chip will activate. It only takes a little bit of white brainwash to activate the coon chip in the average Negro.
So, yeah, I mean, it is what it is.
Bruh.
It is what it is. If you are not thinking a certain way, they're going to strip that black card. And listen, my black card has been stripped.
To this day. To this day.
I don't think I'm ever getting my black card back. Anyway, enough about me. All right. So this is what's going to get me considered a quote unquote coon as I get ready to cover this segment of Allie Beth Stuckey's Reliable podcast. All right. Or is this what do they call what do they call these types of things? Because I think a podcast is only when you have it's just sound, audio, no visual. So I guess this would be a vlogcast. I don't know. Guess so. But anyway, I like the way that she did the chapters at the bottom because, you can go to like different chapters, different parts of the videos, or the different parts of that particular stream and kind of jump to a chapter to go to the relevant parts that are in question instead of trying to sift through the whole thing and then try to figure out exactly the part where the part is that's in question. So, if you guys do go to Allie Beth Stuckey's podcast or YouTube channel, it is called Relatable with Allie Beth Stuckey. And if you go around to like the 56:28 mark, then this is where this clip starts. All right. But if you want to watch the whole thing, you can go ahead and do that as well. All right. Now, like I said, I have not watched this. So I'm going to be reacting in real time at 1.25 speed. And hopefully she don't flag my channel. But fair use.
We're going against God. If I'm going against them, I'm going against God. And so I've had to kind of take a position where I have to understand I'm talking to somebody that actually believes that this is a divine thing that's happening within them.
Can I ask something?
Yeah.
It's going to be controversial. And I don't know if you've talked about this because a lot of the theology, obviously we see it.
Oh, you better believe it's going to be controversial because you're a white woman talking about black people? You can't do that. You cannot do that. Not today in America. Not today in America, Miss Allie Beth Stuckey. Your skin is too light. Your hair is too straight. Well, it might not be too straight. You could probably get away with the straight hair, but that skin tone? All right. Let's hear this controversial statement.
And all different kinds of churches, all different kinds of places.
Sure.
This seems to be especially prevalent in majority black churches.
Oh.
There's a lot of prosperity preaching, but a lot of, as you're talking, I'm like, I've heard that a lot. You are divine. You are a queen. You are, a goddess, something special. And
yes. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if you've ever talked about the roots of that or why that is.
It's interesting you bring that up.
Is it bad to call a woman a queen? Is it bad to call a woman a queen? Because we do say that a lot in the black community. They quick to call you king and queen and all of that stuff. Anyway, let's get back to it. Stop my babble. That's what I want to know. Is that wrong?
That is a controversial question, especially today's political climate. But I guarantee there's a lot of people watching that are like, Allie's not wrong. You know, there's something there. And I was reading Kate Bowler's book. Do you know who that is? Yeah. And there's a whole section on this that she talks about with the Black church and the prosperity gospel and all these other theologies that kind of entered into the Black church. I mean, Carlton Pearson is one of them. Carlton Pearson was a Pentecostal Word of Faith preacher, Reverend Ike. And both of them were very off when it came to a lot of their teachings. That's like an origin there in that regard. I haven't looked too much into it, but you're not wrong.
Yeah.
I have friends. I have a friend, in fact, we've talked many times. She's Black and she talks about this a lot on her, she's in ministry as well on her channel. And that's one thing I asked her. I was like, so what's up with this? You know, like how does this, how do they square this circle? How do they make it so that, you know, maybe in some of their churches that aren't Black have a different view on these things, but
and see, this is the thing, and this is what I tell Black people all of the time. You know, when we're out and we're doing stuff, and I'm not saying that I do or believe in any of these things myself, but I will say that and I'm no spokesman for the Black community at all, but when I do, when white people are asking some of these questions, to be honest, some of them are genuinely asking. I mean, how many... Let's just be real. How many of you would believe that a person like Allie Beth Stuckey and this lady that she's talking to would be attending church at somebody like Jamal Bryant's church, or they would have attended Reverend Ike or Carlton Pearson's church on a regular basis? Let's just be honest. Let's just be honest. They're basically on the outside looking in. You see what I'm saying? You're on the outside, they're on the outside looking in. So when they start to ask these questions, a lot of times they just like, man, we really just want to know. Like, seriously, when we really start to see these things happening in your churches and we're like, okay, this is not happening in our churches, plus we don't see this in the Bible, they have some genuine questions. And I think it's fair. And this is why, and I tell a lot of Black Christians this, you got to stop trying to look at people's skin color and have this worldly, secular mindset, and sometimes are all downright racist. Listen, there are some racist Black Christians out there. I've ran into plenty of them, and there are some of them who have called me coon, called me Uncle Tom, because I'm just like, hey, listen, let's try to leave race out of this. Let's really start to stick to the Bible. So that's why I tell Black Christians, I'm like, man, listen, learn how to have serious engagement with people. Don't think that just because a person is a different skin tone than you, then that automatically means that you have to give them pushback because of the color of their skin and all of the stuff that Black people went through in this country. If that person claims to be a brother or sister in the faith, then receive that person as a brother or sister in the faith, but not, well, yeah, we brothers and sisters in the faith because we both believe in Jesus, but there's still a division between us because of our skin color. You'll never get anywhere like that. All right, let's get back to it.
The Black church is very different. Tell me about that.
Yeah.
You know, so I wouldn't say that you're wrong in that.
A lot of the prosperity preachers that I see, like we played a clip the other day and it was like kind of a funny clip, but it was this
Which
older,
one was it?
She was this older white lady. I had never heard of her or seen her before, but she was using a food analogy. She was like, when you need oil in order to fry all of these things, but
I saw that clip.
what oil do you use to fry bacon? Yeah, you don't need it. And it was like, you are your own anointing oil to give yourself power. So it's this older white lady, but almost the entire congregation was Black. I don't know if people know who like Real Talk Kim is. She's got like over 1 million Instagram followers. She talks like that very prosperity preacher. Same thing. And she's just this like, 40-something white lady. Almost her entire congregation, it seems like, is Black. Yeah. And so I don't know.
Now, is that a problem? Is that a problem? Because some of the same people that are so quick to call you coon and Uncle Tom, they'll be following a lot of these, white people who can talk a certain way and they can bring in a majority Black audience. And it's like the Black people, they're okay with that. They're totally fine with a white person coming in and speaking a certain way to Black people and gaining an audience, and they, no problem. Oh, she gets us. She understands the community, this, that, and the third. But if you have another white person that's questioning some of the things that this other white person is saying to a majority Black audience, now this now the black people have a problem with the white people that have a problem with the white person that is basically fleecing the black people instead of them having a problem with the white person that's fleecing the black people. And this is why the question comes up. Like, why are we as black people so susceptible to that stuff? We're so blackety black power this, black power that. But if a white person comes in and says something that draws a crowd of mostly black people, that nobody bats an eyelash. It's just like, oh yeah, yep, thumbs up. There ain't no white supremacy here.
No, I just think that is interesting, and I wonder
what's the correlation there. Like,
yes, I wonder why specifically in majority black churches that seems to be very prevalent. I don't know.
I don't know either. That'd be an interesting thing to look into, though.
Yes, next video for you. Okay, tell us anything else you want to say about this book. What do you hope people walk away with? What's the main thing you hope people learn?
And I think that's it. I think that she's kind of going into her book. All right. Go ahead and remove this. So I think she's going to kind of go into her book, and they're going to talk about that stuff, for a little bit. We got to be honest when it comes to black people, especially the black church. And people don't like me when I talk about the black church, but listen, there is a such thing as the black church. Let's just start being adults. And I've explained this plenty of times. It's just so funny how people want to have this, oh, well, the church is colorless and there's no such thing as a black church and this, that, and the third. Listen, stop, just take the blinders off. Because sometimes it seems like that people put these blinders on because they just don't want to deal with certain topics. So it's better to just say, well, there ain't no black church, there ain't no white church, it's just one church. Yes, it is. But when we're talking about the black church, we're talking about a specific group of people. And a lot of times, this specific group of people has taken the choice to separate themselves from white churches, Asian churches, Indian churches, and all of that. And the reason why we even have a black church, if we go, let me just get a little bit of black power going on. And I'm black, y'all. Put my little black power into the mix. But the reason why there is a such thing as a quote unquote black church is because of racial injustice in this country. I know people gonna be like, oh, it sounds like you kind of moving over there. No, just being real. Let's just be honest. Black people came to this country via the slave ships. Well, black American people. We came over here by the slave ships. After the Emancipation Proclamation, black people were set free, but there was still segregation. Black people still were not treated equally. Then you had the Civil Rights Movement. And like I tell people before, my grandparents were young adults in the Civil Rights Movement. My great-grandparents were middle-aged people during the Civil Rights Movement. My parents grew up as children in the Civil Rights Movement. They remember certain parts of segregation. They remember when busing and all of that stuff was happening. And this is only about 60 years ago. So this is still kind of fresh in some people's minds. And all of that time in history, black people couldn't just walk into a white church and just start worshiping with white people. Not in the South, you couldn't. You could have messed around and got beaten or lynched or whatever. You come walking up in the white church. And then there were some churches that integrated, but the white people had to sit at the front. Black people had to sit at the back. Black people can worship. They could do all of that stuff. But when it came to ordaining ministers and preachers and all of that stuff, it was all white people. Oh. Let's start being honest with the history, y'all. Let's start having some of these conversations. And this is not to try to bring white guilt on white people or and try to elevate black people and all. No. Let's just have the conversation to understand why certain things are the way that they are. So we can start correcting some of these falsehoods. So therefore, when you had a lot of segregation in the churches, black people, they went out and they had to branch off and they started their own churches because they wasn't going to get it from the blessing of the white people. The white people wasn't going to ordain them and allow them to preach in front of their congregations and do all of that stuff. Just to be honest with it. So they said, okay, well, we got sound men who know how to preach the word of God. We'll go ahead and appoint them as elders, as pastors, et cetera, et cetera. And that's how you end up getting a quote unquote black church. Now, let's just think about it. Now the Klan had their own church. They had their white churches, quote unquote. And some of them still kind of exist to this day. Now, remember, I covered a lot of the racism that's going on with Christian nationalism. So we cover everything on this channel. So we can rightly divide this. This is what we're about. Rightly dividing this. We don't play identity politics here. If it's wrong on one side, we're going to talk about it. If it's wrong on another side, we're going to use this right here to divide truth from error. So this is why we have a black and white church. And given all of the history, or the short part of the history that I just told you, it has been a little easier to have black people being swindled or being duped or being led into certain ideologies based on their situations here in America. Some black people, they did not have the luxuries that a lot of white people had. They had a lot more things that they had to deal with that a lot of white people didn't have to deal with growing up in the church. You have a lot of our black churches that are filled with single mothers dragging the kids off the church. And then in the 80s, especially when the crack epidemic happened, you got a lot of these parents, the mothers, they were out there strung out on drugs. So guess who had to take care of the children? It was the grandparents, the grandmother or the great grandmother. You see what I'm saying? So what do? Majority of the time, they took them, they drug them to church. And then with high fatherlessness inside of the black community, majority of the people that went into the church were women. And then guess what? The pastor, now he has to teach these kind of feminized messages because, he had to teach these messages to keep these women continuing to come and continuing to pay their tithes and offerings. So it's a lot of history behind that stuff. So therefore, you have some of these people that they may have come from pagan backgrounds, or they may have read a certain book or listened to a certain person that was like really influential, and they started to pick up a lot of these ideologies and started to mix it and mingle it with the scriptures. This is how you get a lot of new age thought into the church, especially the prosperity. It doesn't really work too much in white churches, but there are some white prosperity preachers. Maybe not as many as black ones. But again, going back to black people who are living in poverty, the whole week, they're going through all types of stuff. Eviction notices, lights being cut off, people going to jail, people dying. 6 out of the 7 days of the week, they had to deal with this stuff. So the one day that they can kind of escape from that is when they went to church. Preacher gets up there and tell them that, hey, everything is going to be all right. God is going to bless you. You've been a faithful servant. You've been paying your tithes and offerings, and God is going to do something for you. And there have been cases where people have been paying their tithes and offerings to the church, faithful stewards to the church. And some of these people have ended up getting blessed. Not saying that it happens all the time where paying tithes is a way that you get blessed, but some of these people, out of faith, they continue to pay and support the church. And some of these people ended up being blessed by that. So what do you think happens when sister such and such living in a 2-bedroom apartment, is just her and 5 kids and they're on welfare and all of that stuff, but she's still taking whatever she got, paying it to the church. And then one day, sister such and such ends up getting a job, or one of her kids end up, graduating high school, going off to college and becoming some pro basketball or football or baseball player, and come back and blesses their mom with that. Take them up out of the hood. Now they don't have to live in roaches and rats, and now he's taking care of his mom and all of his younger siblings. And then he comes back to the church, the pastor that has been faithful to that congregation, and he drops money to help get the church taken care of. Helps get that roof that's been leaking for the past 15 years. He gets that roof taken care of. Pastor struggling to drive his old beat up truck to church. He goes and he buys his pastor a new truck. Helps renovate the church. So there are some things that do happen, and guess what? All glory goes to God. But on the flip side of that, you got people who prey on their parishioners in order to line their pockets. Trust me, we talk about that too. And we're going to continue to talk about that because it's wrong and it's sinful. And if those men and women don't repent, they're going to hell. Simple as that. Your Juanita Bynums, your Creflo Dollars, your TD Jakeses, all of these people that's running around here and they're fleecing people just to keep putting money in their pockets, they're going to go to hell if they don't repent. And that's the God's honest truth. So what happens is that you get these wolves that enter the church and they say, well, yeah, and they start telling all of these stories, all of these TED Talk type stories. Yeah, y'all remember Sister such and such, and she got a testimony for y'all. And, remember when, her husband went out there, got on crack and got arrested and dealing with the wrong crowd. And he was shot, found in the alley. And she had to take care of all 5 of them kids by herself. Then she had to turn around and take care of a couple of her nieces because her sister was strung out on crack. But she brought all of them children into the church every Sunday. And she still paid them tithes. Eviction letters on the door, God still made a way. But you know what it came from? It came from them tithes and offerings. She did it with faith, just like that lady with the 2 copper coins who walked into the temple and said, see? And Jesus said, look, she gave all she had, and God blessed her with that. Now, some of y'all working good jobs. Y'all ain't on welfare. Y'all can give a little bit more. Sister such and such, she used to, give $10. $10 every Sunday. Now, some of y'all can afford that $100 every Sunday. Y'all can afford that $1,000 every Sunday. Sow that seed and you're going to be blessed. Some of y'all want new cars. Sow that seed. Some of y'all trying to add on to that 2,000 square foot house. Sow that seed. Some of y'all want to be able to fly private jets and fly from Atlanta to Cancun on a private jet. Take your wife somewhere real nice. Just sow that seed. Money cometh to me now. And this is how some of this stuff ends up in the black church, and majority of a lot of our black churches. But we got to be willing to have these conversations, and we got to be willing to have these answers too, and to talk about it. And like I said, we can't be walking around here just looking to be triggered all the time and looking to lines of like racial, I'm talking about racial inequality all the time. And, oh yeah, I'm a Christian, I'm black, and they Christian, and they white. But at the end of the day, they white folks, and we got to like keep our eye on them because they might be MAGA white Republicans. They might be, MAGA Christian nationalists. It's like, no, let's start using discernment. And I say this a lot. It seems like that us as Christians, we've gotten so lazy. We don't want to discern what is true and what is false. We've gotten so lazy to where we don't even want to discern people anymore. Somebody says that they're Christian. Oh yeah. All right, cool. That person's Christian. Good with me. And sometimes you can be watching some of these people. Like I've watched some of these people online, right? Holding their podcasts and their live streams, showing so much unchristian like behavior. And everybody like, yep, thumbs up. But then when that person starts to get exposed, now everybody, oh yeah, I was over there. But now that everybody is against them, now I'm against them as well. You see what's happening with Robert Morris, right? When this thing came out back in the day, hey, this is what Robert Morris is doing with this young girl. Guess what his church leaders did at the time? Yeah, we just gonna sit him down, for a little bit. I think they sat him down for like 2 to 6 months or something like that. But within 2 years, he was right back up in the pulpit, pastoring a church. But now all of a sudden, when all of this is coming out 40 something years later, now his church we got to make him step down. And we didn't know all of this stuff was going on because we've gotten lazy. We're not letting this lead anymore. We're letting our feelings and emotions lead people nowadays. And this is why you have a lot of these things going on in the black church. And this is why you have people such as myself and others who see the errors that are happening within the black church, and they're making provisions to correct those things. But, this is why we have to continue to pray, continue to study our word, continue to preach the gospel in season and out of season, and give people the truth. And if we really do believe that a lot of black people that are in the black churches is our true brothers and sisters in the faith, well then, hey, let's give them the gospel in love. And that goes for any other church. You know, even those Christian nationalists, you know what I'm saying? Still struggle with that. But listen, if I do run across anybody who is a Christian nationalist or something like that, you know, I pray that the Lord gives me strength, all right, to be able to have a, just a decent dialogue and a respectful conversation with a person who is a Christian nationalist, you know, a biblical conversation. All right. But anyway, man, that is the end of this segment. Conan, what else?